Okay, hello everybody, welcome to the channel. Welcome to the video. Okay, so I'm not going to take up a lot of your time. The title is self-explanatory. We'll be ranking the weapons in Space Marine 2. Okay, now before I begin, let me have you a bit of a disclaimer, all right? First of all, who am I? Because my channel is like very small. I don't get a lot of views, so you guys don't know me. I'm relatively new to this, okay? So you might be thinking, oh, why should I listen to this guy? So just so you know me, I am a guy who loves this game a lot, plays this game a lot, and right now I have over 600 hours into this game. I have leveled every class, every weapon, I have tried every build, every perk, and I can play little difficulty, which as of the recording of this video is the highest difficulty in the game, just fine with any class, any build, any weapon, all right? Including solo lethal runs, okay? So why am I saying this? Is to brag, to show my big balls? No, it's nothing like that. I actually don't think I'm a great player in this game. There are people who are much better than me, okay? But I do have 600 hours worth of knowledge. That's my point here. I want to share 600 hours worth of knowledge with you guys. And the reason I'm doing this is because I see a lot of videos here on YouTube of people getting hundreds and thousands of views, and they really don't know what they're saying. They're giving you bad information. They're speaking bullshit. And I don't want to feed you guys bullshit. I want to feed you guys with proper information, information so you can learn, you can make your own decisions, you can stay properly informed, okay? That's the purpose of this video, to share what I know, all my 600 hours worth of experience with you guys, okay? Also, you can go ahead and check the channel, see my gameplay, see my past lives, and you'll see if I'm the kind of player you want to learn from or not, okay? So without further ado, let's get into this. Now, important saying this. This is for PvE operations mode only, okay? This is not a ranking for PvP, all right? PvP might be something completely different. I'm not really into PvP, so I don't know. In campaign, you can pretty much use whatever the hell you want. There's no variations of weapons in campaign. Campaign, like, you don't need a guide for campaign, okay? This is for PvE operations. Always bear in mind that I'm also assuming you have, like, I'm classifying this, assuming you have relic gold weapons, all right? The highest tier of the weapon, okay? So for PvE operations, lethal difficulty, relic weapons, which is the max level version of the weapon. Still, what I say will probably apply to the other versions below relic, but right here, I'm basing myself out of relic weapons, okay? The relic tier of weapons. Also, I'm going to divide this into 3 different parts. First one is for primary weapons, which will be the largest section. Then I'm going to reset this and do another one for the pistols, the sidearms, and another one for the melee weapons, all right? So it doesn't get clustered here, because they're basically different categories, okay? So without further ado, let's get started, guys. So as you can see, I have divided this into 4 different tiers, being the strongest weapons in the game. Weapons that are still pretty good. They're not quite as the strongest in the game, but they're still pretty good weapons. Weapons that are okay. I can say they're bad weapons, but I can't say they're pretty damn good weapons either, all right? And instead of saying bad weapons or crap weapons or shitty weapons, I'm just saying not my favorite. I don't like this weapon very much, all right? And I'm not just going to play, oh, this one goes here, this one goes here, and this one goes there. No. That would be pretty easy and pretty stupid. That's not why you're here. I'm going to talk about them and explain to you these weapons. What are they strong at? What are they weak at? Why you should be choosing them? Why are they good? Why are they bad? Why I like them? Why I don't like them? So you can make your own decisions, okay? So you can learn from this. That's the purpose of this thing. And before I even begin, I'll say this. You can pick only the very worst that I put here that are not my favorite, that I think they're the worst weapons in the game. You can select them all, and you can still own the game. You can play solo lethal difficulty just fine using the very worst weapons in the game. Yeah, even the very worst are still good weapons. This is comparative, all right? In comparison to what we have available, these are the ones I think are the better, and these are the ones I think are not so good by comparison, okay? Being good at this game does not depend on the weapons you pick, depends on your skill, right? I know a guy who plays with me in my clan, he's so good, he can do solo lethal difficulty with just knife and grenades. That's it, the guy is a freaking monster. It's about his skill. You can give him, like, if there was bare fists in the game, you could give him just bare fists and he would still beat the game lethal solo easily, because it's about skill. You want to get good in the game, it's about your skill, not the weapons you pick, all right? This is to help you have guided information so you can make your choices, right? If you're struggling with the game, if you're learning, if you're still leveling, this guide will be particularly helpful for you. You might have an easier time with the strongest weapons than with the not so strong weapons, okay? Also, you might see some weapon in this list that I don't consider very good, and you might say, oh, but this is my kind of weapon, this is my kind of gameplay, this is the style I like, all right? So this is to provide you with information. And also worth noting, it's my opinion, all right? Of course it's my opinion, it's my video, I'm the one who's talking. And it's totally okay if you disagree with it, you can leave comments, you can talk about it. Sure thing, no problem. All I ask of you, bro, actually I incentivize you to open a discussion and talk, leave your comment. Be welcome, brother, be welcome. All I ask of you is please be polite, be educated, all right, in the comments. Like, let's keep this place a place free of hate, okay? That's all I ask of you guys. So let's get started. First of all, I divide the weapons into categories because it will make it easier for me to explain to you guys as I go along. Also worth noting, each weapon is available to different classes in operations mode. So me rating a weapon good or bad is, of course, based on the class. It goes along with the class, all right? With the class, the perks, and the builds, all right? Bear that in mind. So for starters, we have the first category of weapon is your regular bolter weapons. So you have over here the bolt rifle, and here you have the bolt rifle with grenade launcher. So why did I separate these two? Is because they are very different weapons that do very different things, okay? Also, you have the variations of the bolt rifle, which is the auto bolt rifle, which is basically a version with more ammo, that fires faster, it has less recoil and does a bit less damage. So it's kind of more of a machine gun kind of bolt rifle. And you have the heavy bolt rifle, which is the opposite. It has less ammo, a larger mag, it fires a bit slower, it has more recoil, more of a kick, but it does quite considerably more damage per shot, all right? And finally, in this final category, before we jump to the next, is the heavy bolter, which is not the heavy bolt rifle, okay? Now, important noting, the bolt rifles, all of them, are only available to the tactical class. The tactical is the class in the game that has the largest possible selection of weapons. So these weapons are only available to the tactical, all right? So let's get started with the regular bolt rifle. And the regular bolt rifle, I will rank here is not my favorite weapon. It's not really a very good weapon in my opinion. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage. It doesn't have a particularly good range, doesn't have particularly lot of ammo, it doesn't do particularly well in anything. It's a pretty meh weapon, all right? It's a pretty meh weapon. There's nothing really spectacular about it. Any variation, any version of it you pick. Except if you go for the grenade launcher. If you pick the bolt rifle with grenade launcher, it's an entirely different weapon, and the grenade launcher goes straight into the strongest weapons in the game, if not the strongest weapon in the game. And I'll explain you guys why. The reason for this, remember, this is only available to the tactical. Only the tactical can use this weapon. Grenades, they do a whole lot of damage to everything in area, and they don't do friendly damage to you or your teammates not even stagger. You can shoot as many grenades as you want from the grenade launcher and not worry about a goddamn thing in the world. Whatever they hit, they're gonna kill. They do area damage. You can hit them on a distance, on close range, doesn't fucking matter. Grenades are awesome. Now, what makes this fucking broken is that the tactical has a class perk called the Emperor's Vengeance, if I'm not mistaken, which basically means what this perk does is every time you kill a Majoris or higher, you get refunded a full magazine worth of ammo. What ends up happening is that this perk also triggers a full magazine of grenades from your grenade launcher. So in this skill, as when the game released, all right, when the game released, this skill would proc every 30 seconds. So every 30 seconds you kill a Majoris or higher, you would get your entire full magazine of worth of grenades. If you spec the weapon right with the proper perks, you can have a magazine of 11 grenades. And every time you kill the Majoris or higher, you would get all your 11 grenades refunded back to you. So you basically have infinite grenades every 30 fucking seconds. If that is not outright straight fucking broken, then I don't know what it is. All right. Now, as of patch 5.0, they made a few changes to this that are not in the patch notes, okay? And the changes they made is, now when Emperor's Vengeance procs, you no longer get your entire magazine worth of grenades, you only get 7. And Emperor's Vengeance, instead of proccing every 30 seconds, I'm pretty sure it procs every minute. Now, this is not in the game. If you go with the tooltip in the game, it will say every 30 seconds. These changes are not in the patch notes, but I assure you, they are in the game. Go test it for yourself. You only get 7 grenades back, and it only procs every minute, no longer every 30 seconds. So instead of infinite grenades every 30 seconds, you have 7 grenades every minute, which is still pretty darn strong. And many people still think this needs a nerf because it's still fucking broken. It's quite possibly the best, the strongest build, the strongest weapon in the game because of the infinite grenades thing. Except now, instead of spamming grenades mindlessly, you actually have to be mindful of your grenades and be wise how you use them. Otherwise, you might run out of grenades. And if you run out of grenades, you basically are stuck with just a regular bolt rifle that is a very terrible weapon. All right? So this requires a bit more skill now. It was even a brain dead build because you just spam grenades and don't worry about a goddamn thing. All right, this is straight outright fucking broken. Now you have the auto bolt rifle, which, as I said, is a different version that fires faster, has more ammo, but does a little bit less damage, less recoil than the bolt rifle. But it's essentially the very same thing. In my opinion, it's not a damn good weapon. Remember, you can pick the auto bolt rifle and still destroy enemies on maximum difficulty and solo everything with this weapon. Yes, you can. But in my opinion, in comparison to what you have available to you, this is much better than this. That's the whole point. And the same thing goes for the heavy bolt rifle. Trust me, I tried to make this thing work, but it's still nowhere near as good as having a freaking grenade launcher. But in my opinion, between the bolt rifles, only bolt rifles, this here is the better one of them, so I'm going to place it here as an okay weapon, okay? Just barely. It just barely makes the cut to be an okay weapon, in my opinion. If you want to stick to a regular bolt rifle, like, oh, I want a bolt rifle, which one should I pick? I don't want to go grenade launcher because I don't know why, for whatever reasons. Some people don't like it, think it's broken, or because you want to try something else, you want to play with a regular rifle experience, then I say the heavy bolt rifle is the one that pleases me the most, that I think you also like the most, all right? It's definitely better than these two, in my opinion. And finally, you have the heavy bolter. And the heavy bolter is available exclusively to the heavy class. This thing doesn't have to reload. You don't have to reload this weapon. The way it works is you keep firing until it builds up heat and you can't fire no longer. You have to cool down the weapon, all right? And this thing here goes straight into amongst the strongest weapons in the game. It does massive fucking damage to everything in your path. Doesn't matter what it is. if it is minorities, if it is majorities, if it is extremists, if it is terminus enemies, they're close to you, if they're far away from you, it doesn't fucking matter. This thing does massive damage if properly used with a proper build in the hands of the heavy, all right? It does heavy damage. It's ridiculously powerful, especially against Chaos. Chaos got nothing on the heavy bolter, really, really. Heavy bolter owns Chaos, all right? Straight up right, best weapons in the game. Now for the next category of weapons, we have carbines, all right? And along with carbines, I also placed over here the stalker bolter, all right? I think it's this one. It's very small for me, but I think it's this one. So you have the regular carbine, and you have a different version of the regular carbine, which is the marksman carbine. So I put them separately here because they're basically different weapons. And I cannot talk about this weapon without talking about the stalker bolter, all right? Also, you have the instigator carbine and the oculus carbine. These two weapons are exclusively available to the Vanguard class, so they are Vanguard weapons only. The carbines and the stalker bolter are available to the tactical and to the sniper, all right? Important to bear that in mind. Now, the regular carbine, all carbines have extra headshot damage based on them, all right? So you do more headshot damage with any kind of carbine. And the regular carbine does 50% extra damage to targets that are 10 meters up to 10 meters away from you. Now, 10 meters is pretty darn close. It's not very far from you at all. It's basically in very close range. So in very close range, anything you shoot in the head with this thing is gonna die really quickly. Massive single target DPS damage at close range. That's what this weapon does. Outside of this, and it's actually a freaking beast in PvP too, in the hands of the sniper, just because you can go invisible, get behind the enemy, and blast them in the head, in the back of the head. There's nothing they can do, all right? This thing will melt anything. And you can play this style, this sniper style, in operations too. You can go invisible, get behind your enemies, use your knife to do shadow stab, and your carbine to do massive close range damage in their faces, behind their backs, all right? And it's definitely a possible build. It's viable, and you can do that, and it might even be fun for you. I don't like it, and I'll tell you why. Because the great thing about the sniper is your ability, your capacity to snipe, which means to pick your targets anywhere in the map and just destroy them from a distance. If you pick this build, you give up your ability to snipe. You don't play as a sniper, you play more like of a rogue, you know? Like go invisible and backstab people and shoot them in the back, shoot them in the face while you're invisible, all right? So now that you know what this weapon does, I'm going to classify it as an okay weapon, all right? To me, it's an okay weapon. Yes, it does massive single target damage in very specific close range situations, but there are better options, especially for the sniper, all right? I actually think the tactical makes better use of this weapon than the sniper, okay? Of all the possible sniper builds you can go for, the rogue one that I just described, to me, it's the inferior of them all. But again, you can play it, you can have fun with it, you can say, oh, I like it so much, I have fun with it, I like to play the rogue style. That's cool, that's cool. But bear in mind, it's strictly inferior to playing a sniper style, all right? There's some things in this game that only the sniper can do, and he's amazing at. And it's not with this goddamn weapon, all right? My opinion, this is not a great weapon at all, especially for the sniper. It's better in the hands of the tactical, but still, it's not a very great weapon, especially if you consider you can pick grenade launcher, right? Grenade launcher is infinite times better than this. So, other than the regular carbine, you have the marksman carbine. And basically, these are different weapons because this is an automatic weapon that has a very fast firing rate for close range targets. And this here is more of a single shot version of the carbine. It's a bit more accurate. It has a bit less ammo, quite considerably less ammo compared to the regular carbine. You have a lot more accuracy, and your man it's not really a close range only weapon. It's like an all-purpose weapon for all ranges. It works well at close range, it works well at mid-range, it works well at long range. And I'm going to classify this as an okay weapon, all right? Again, this is available to tactical and sniper. And why am I placing this as an okay weapon? Because I don't think this is a particularly great weapon. It's not particularly good at doing a lot of damage. It's not particularly good at picking targets from a range. It's not really. It's an in-between kind of weapon. It's not really massive in your face single target damage. Also, it's not a ranged sniper weapon. It's an okay weapon, right? You can do fine with it, but you have much better options for these two classes available. And also, I cannot talk about this weapon, the Marksman Carbine, without talking about the Stalker Bolter. Again, Stalker Bolter available to the tactical and to the sniper. It's technically a sniper rifle, but the Stalker Bolter works very well, both at close range as well as at sniping targets that are far away from you. All right? And in my opinion, the Stalker Bolter does everything this weapon does, only so much fucking better. Both for the tactical and for the sniper. If you want to snipe as the tactical, this is your really only viable option, and it's a pretty damn good weapon and pretty damn fun weapon, both in the hands of the tactical as well as the sniper. It's a pretty damn good weapon. If you play bolt carbine marksman, you will play basically the same style with the Stalker Bolter, except the Stalker Bolter is infinitely better. It does a lot more damage, it has better range, it's just an outright, it has a better scope, it's outright just a better fucking weapon, alright? And it's a damn fun weapon to use too. It's a good weapon, it's fun, it's powerful, and it's very well viable, alright? Especially in the hands of the tactical, because remember, the thing about the Stalker Bolter is that it doesn't have a whole lot of ammo. That's its downside. But if you use the perk on it that refunds you ammo based on the enemies, how many enemies you hit, there's a perk for in the weapons tree for this particular weapon. And you pair that with Emperor's Vengeance, remember, same thing I talked about here, where you get refunded an entire magazine worth of ammo. So you can basically use this weapon with the tactical and not worry about running out of ammo. You can pretty much spam this weapon. That, in my opinion, makes it even better than in the hands of the sniper. All right? Still, in the hands of the sniper, is still a pretty damn good weapon. Now, proceeding to the other carbines. You have the Instigator Carbine and the Oculus Carbine, both available only to the Vanguard, all right? The Instigator Carbine has a smaller magazine, a smaller amount of ammo, and fires bursts of 3 rounds per shot. It does great at close range damage, at mid-range damage, and at long-range damage as well, all right? It's not bad at long range. Even though it loses accuracy, obviously, it loses accuracy. It's not a sniper rifle, all right? It's not a sniper kind of weapon. But you can still do damage from range with this thing. And it pairs very well with the Vanguard style, in my opinion. The downside of this weapon is that because it fires fast bursts and it doesn't have a whole lot of ammo, you can run out of ammo with this thing pretty fast if you don't know how to play, if you spam this thing too much, all right? But it's a pretty damn good weapon and pretty damn fun one, and it complements the Vanguard arsenal very, very well. Now, the Oculus is basically a version of the Carbine that has an added scope. Also, important noting, the Instigator also has a scope, okay? A long-range scope, all right? The Marksman, the Bolt Carbine Marksman, does not have a long-range scope, all right? So getting back, the Oculus, just as the Instigator, has a long-range scope, but instead of firing bursts, it constantly fires, much like a machine gun, right? This is pretty much a machine gun with a scope, right? And ironically, if the scope version, the scoped shots are more accurate than the close range shots, right? Only in the game, like realistically speaking, as far away as you get from your target, like you have a loss of accuracy. But this thing is more accurate the far away the target is from you if you're using the scope. The scope makes it more accurate, all right? And it's a pretty reliable weapon. It does good damage at range, at close range, at long range. By comparison to the Instigator, it does a little bit less damage per shot, but you have much more ammo and a much larger magazine, and you can keep a constant fire rate instead of firing bursts, all right? So it's a nice option for the Vanguard. It's a bit different of a style than playing with the Instigator. It's still a pretty damn good weapon also, right? When the game came out, carbines specifically, and especially this one, were not very good. But after the patches and the changes and the modifications they have done, these weapons are now pretty good. Carbines are in a pretty good spot, especially these two ones. They're in a pretty good spot. They're pretty damn good weapons. And they actually are very different play styles on the hands of the Vanguard. I suggest you guys try them both and see which one you like the better. Some people like the Instigator a little bit better, like myself. Some people like the Oculus a little bit better. I guess it's a matter of style, of play style, right? But these two are pretty much they're pretty damn good, all right? They're pretty damn good. They're just two nice options you have available for the Vanguard. Now this concludes basically the carbine, the bolter carbine section of weapons. Next, we have the Meltas, all right? So if you don't know the Meltas are basically super overpowered shotguns that do massive damage to anything in front of you, all right? And you have basically only two Meltas in the game. You have the regular Melta rifle and the multi-Melta, all right? The regular Melta rifle is available to the Tactical and to the Vanguard. And the multi-Melta is exclusively available to the Heavy. Now, these two weapons, they might seem similar at a first glance, but they're actually quite different. First of all, the regular Melta rifle, you have a limited amount of ammo and you have a magazine, and it's quite possibly has the longest reload time of any weapon in the game. So it takes a long ass time to reload a magazine of Melta, all right? And this is quite a big deal. The multi-Melta doesn't have a magazine, and also it's the only weapon in the game that doesn't heat, does not build heat. This weapon, you don't need to reload this weapon, and you don't need to cool this weapon either. You can just keep spamming multi-Melta shots as much as you like with no fucking drawbacks. All right, yeah, that's it. That's the only weapon available to the Heavy that does not overheat, and you do not have to reload this weapon. Now, there's a big difference between these two. Important saying, the closer you are to the target, the more damage you're going to do with the Melta, all right? So if you hit the target just barely outside, barely inside your range, like at your maximum range, you're going to do an amount of damage. If you hit the target in his face, actually in the face, very close to him, you do more damage. That's why you see sometimes you shoot gaunts with Melta and they don't die, they keep in the execution state. Why? Because they were right in the edge where they take less damage. But if you go up a bit closer to them and you shoot, they die, all right? Now, this weapon, available to the Tactical and Vanguard, again, you can fire this weapon from the hip without aiming and destroy everything in your path, and it has a quite fast firing rate. The way to use this weapon is to move around groups of enemies and destroy them. You dodge and fire, dodge and fire, dodge and fire. That's the way you use the Melta, all right? And the purpose of this weapon is to destroy large groups of enemies. You were supposed to be shooting gaunts with this weapon and not Majoris. This is not a Majoris killer weapon. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage against Majoris. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage against Extremis or Terminus enemies either. It's a rather poor damage, even if you shoot them at close range, all right? If you're playing this, your targets are gaunts. If you're spamming Melta to kill Majoris enemies, then you're not playing Melta right. Sorry, you're really not playing the regular Melta right, especially if you're playing the Vanguard, all right? The way to play the Melta is you use the Melta for groups and clumps of enemies. Yes, you will shoot Majoris with it, but only on specific circumstances. if you can hit more than one target with this, then it's a good way to use, like, it's a good shot. If you're hitting more than one target with this, it's a good shot, all right? The more you can hit, the better. Yes, you can use this to interrupt them, to stagger them, to break their blocking stance, or to stop a call for help, all right? If they're berserking, remember, in lethal, you have berserker enemies, and if they're berserking, this will not stop them this will not stagger them, all right? If you're used to shooting monsters in the face and staggering them, the moment you run to a berserker and you do this, he's going to kill you because berserkers cannot get staggered by this, all right? Important to say this, okay? So the way you should be using this, especially as the Vanguard, is if you have single target enemies that you're Majoris, you should be killing them with your melee weapon and with your pistol, and only shooting this to kill groups, clumps of enemies if you can hit multiple targets. It's a fast move around weapon and keep shooting, firing from the hip. It doesn't really require you to have any precision with it or any particularly good aim with this weapon. So it's an easy to use weapon. It's kind of a newbie weapon, right? And that's why you can get so very comfortable killing Majoris with it, because you just go to their face, keep shooting, they keep staggered. But if you do this, you're going to run out of ammo really, really, really quickly. Now, there's a lot of new tactical players doing this. Why? Because, remember, tactical has the Emperor Vengeance, which will refund you in a full magazine worth of ammo every time you kill Majoris or higher. So basically, with the tactical, you can melt a spam to kill whatever the fuck you want and not worry about a goddamn thing in the world, because you're getting ammo every time you do it. So you won't run out of ammo. With the Vanguard, you absolutely are going to run out of ammo if you do that. With the tactical, not so much. That's why there's a lot of tacticals running this weapon, okay? So I'm rating this weapon as a pretty darn good weapon, all right? You will struggle killing targets at a long range from you, high value targets, and if you don't play this proper, you're going to run out of ammo. What you're bringing to your group is the ability to clear large groups of enemies really fucking fast, to go into melee, to go into the fray and just blast everything, clear the hordes with this weapon. So the rest of your group can focus on the high value target enemies, the big dangerous enemies, all right? That's what you should be doing. I see a lot of people playing Melta and they don't shoot the fucking guns with the Melta. They only spam Melta to kill Majoris. You're playing this wrong, okay? You're supposed to be clearing groups and clumps of enemies with this thing, all right? Now, in my opinion, in the hands of the Vanguard, this is a pretty damn good weapon, and it's a pretty fun play style. You struggle with very little with this. It doesn't kill enemies fast with this weapon, all right? And you have to play a mix between using your Melta, using your melee weapons, and using your sidearm. So to be a good player with Melta requires quite a bit of skill, okay? Now, in the hands of the tactical, you don't really need to worry about everything. You could just Melta spam. But if you only Melta spam, you're really not going to be a great player in this game. I can tell you this right off the bat, okay? It's okay to start with the Melta spam, but if you want to be like really, really good, you got to go beyond the Melta spam. Do more than just Melta spam, all right? And in my opinion, it's really not the best weapon available to the tactical, okay? I think these two weapons here, the grenade launcher is by far the very best, and you have other options available to the tactical that in my opinion, are better than the Melta, specifically for the tactical. But again, you can play tactical Melta and still be pretty damn good, all right? Now for the multi-Melta, it's basically the very same thing as this weapon, with a few exceptions. It's very low, it has a very low firing rate if you fire from the hip. But if you aim with it, look, this weapon is straight outright broken, all right? It's amongst the strongest weapons in the game, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about it. Unlike the regular Melta, this thing does massive damage to every fucking thing you see. It doesn't matter what it is. Majoris, Extremis, Terminus, it does massive fucking damage, all right? By comparison, it has a lower firing rate if you're firing from the hip. So the dodge and fire from the hip game with this weapon is not as fluid as with this one. You're supposed to go into heavy stance and fire from heavy stance, all right? Also worth noting, this weapon does considerably more damage than this one and has considerably increased range than this one. All right, it has more range and quite a bit more range and does quite a lot more damage to everything. Now, when you go into heavy stance, the game doesn't tell you, but I'm telling you, when you go into heavy stance with any weapon, you have faster firing rate and more damage, and also increased range for the melta. Your effective range increases if you're in heavy stance, your damage increases if you're in heavy stance, and your firing rate increases if you are in heavy stance. All right? On top of that, there are specific weapon perks that increase even more your range when you are in heavy stance and your damage when you are in heavy stance up to extra 20% on top of what you already get by going into heavy stance. So the idea of this weapon is just go into heavy stance and blast everything that's in front of you until they're all dead, burned to smithereens. There's nothing in the game that resists this weapon. It will destroy everything. Doesn't matter what the fuck it is, even bosses, even terminus enemies, they'll get wrecked by the melta, all right? And this thing has quite significantly more range than this one, okay? That's why it's such an amazing, strong weapon. All right, if you get a heavy that can properly use the melta, he can basically wreck everything before you even have time to do anything else. All right, it's just so fucking broken, amongst the very best weapons in the game. All right, that concludes the meltas. Now let's go for the plasmas. All right, so you have the plasma incinerator, who's only available to the tactical, and you have the heavy plasma incinerator was only available to the heavy. Okay. Now the plasma incinerator, the way it works is you have the regular. It's an energy weapon, so it doesn't have a magazine. You don't have to reload it, but it builds heat. So at some point you have to stop firing and cool it down. All right. You can shoot regular shots, or you can shoot charged shots. Okay. Now the regular shots are basically regular shots. There's nothing special about them. They're quite slow, all right? The projectiles from the plasma weapon are quite slow, and the regular shots don't do a whole lot of damage. If you go for the regular shot build only, it's not really great playing like this. But the charge shots are amazing, all right? They do area damage. They're like mini bombs. So if you charge this weapon and you shoot at clumps of guns, you're gonna kill them all. It's like tossing a grenade, all right? And that's why this weapon, amongst all the options available to the tactical, is the one that gets closer to the grenade launcher style, all right? They kind of feel very similar because you're firing charge shots that do explosive damage, and it's a pretty damn good weapon. It's not quite as powerful as the grenade launcher, right? Because it's very hard to beat infinite grenades. They're pretty damn strong, but this is the one that gets the closer to this particular style. All right, and it's a pretty darn good weapon against everything in the game. Really. I can't say like there's a particular enemy that this is bad against, situations where this is bad. No, it's pretty darn good. All right, it's just not quite as good as the grenade launcher, but still it's a pretty darn good weapon. All right. Now for the heavy plasma incinerator. And the heavy plasma incinerator is basically a better version of this weapon, and is straight outright fucking broken, quite possibly the best weapon in the game. Many people will say this is the best weapon in the game. All right. And I mean, it's arguable if it's this, if it's the grenade launcher, right? But one thing is for goddamn sure, it's amongst the very best weapons in the game, the strongest weapons in the game. The same thing this weapon does, this also does, but better. Remember, going into heavy stance makes your shots charge faster, do more damage. All right, you do significantly more damage by going into heavy stance, especially if you build the extra charge shot damage in the weapon perk. You can get up to 20% extra damage also just as you do with the melta. Now, the charge shots, a fully charged shot with the properly spec'd plasma incinerator will get any majoris into execution. and it is area damage. It's quite a large explosion area from a fully charged shot. So if you have a pack of 3, 4, 5 Majoris, a single shot will get all of them. A single fully charged shot will get all of them into execution state. This is fucking broken, all right? Basically, the way you play this is like you're lobbing mini grenades. That's how you do it, all right? It's a bit more difficult to aim at range because you have to account the slow speed of the projectile and the arc that it makes. But once you get the hang of it, you can pretty much blow groups of enemies with ease, regardless of how close or how far they are from you, anywhere in the map. There's very few weapons that can do this. Again, this will do massive damage to whatever it is. Minoris, Majoris, Extremis, Terminus, and you don't even need to have a particularly good aim. Like, you don't need to aim for their head, for their face, for anything. Just in their general vicinity, it's like tossing a bomb, all right? It's like lobbing a grenade. Just aim in their general vicinity, and you're gonna hit them and do maximum damage with it. Also worth noting, even your regular shot from this weapon, the non-charged shot from this weapon, is explosive, all right? It's like a mini grenade. It just has a smaller explosion radius, but it's still explosive. So if you are surrounded by Minoris, surrounded by Gaunts, surrounded by those pesky goat guys, when you're fighting against Chaos, you aim for the ground at your feet and you're gonna blow them all up, all right? And if you're doing this, you don't even need to aim. Like, you can even fire from the hip, a regular single shot, and we will blow them all up. Even the regular single shot is explosive. A lot of people don't know this about this weapon. They think, oh, that's why this weapon is bad. Even the regular shot is explosive, all right? This weapon is amazing, is incredible, and is amongst the very best weapons in the game. Now next, the only two missing weapons are the sniper rifles. And these sniper rifles are only available to the sniper class, all right? And you have the regular bolter rifle and the last fusil, all right? The laser weapon. Now, these weapons aim to do the same thing. They're supposed to be your extremely long range, single target, massive damage killer. So they basically have the same niche, the same purpose. They aim to do the same thing. But there is one of these that is outright superior to the other, better than the other in every fucking way, and that is the last fusil. And the last fusil is straight outright amongst the very best weapons in the game. Now, the bolt sniper rifle is not quite as good as the last fusil, but it's still a pretty damn good weapon, all right? But I really can't put it here because everything it aims to do, the last fusil does better, okay? No, just to put this into perspective, this weapon, you have a magazine and you have to reload. Yes, your shots, because they are bolt weapons, they have penetration. So you can hit 2, 3 more targets in a straight line with this. I think it's up to 3 at maximum, maybe 4. I don't know. Because with the sniper bolter. But with the laser, in comparison, the laser weapon, you don't have a magazine, you just have to charge the shots, all right? And if you build this thing properly, you can get a pretty fast charge shot, okay? Now, this thing will pierce as many enemies as are in their way. You can hit 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, a dozen targets. If they're all in a straight line, you're gonna hit them all, okay? Even the regular beam, without specking into the wide beam, which I don't think is the greatest option you have, even without going the wide beam, the beam is still wide enough that you can hit clumps of Gaunts with this thing and kill them all very easily, okay? You can do area damage with this thing. You can shoot clumps of Gaunts. You can hit multiple enemies with this thing. And because you have a perk specifically for the last fusil on the sniper that says whenever you kill 2 or more targets with a single shot, you get refunded that shot. So you can basically, in combination with that perk, you can basically use this thing to spam laser shots on clumps of Gaunts, on clumps of monsters, and kill them all and not worry about running out of ammo, because every time you kill 2 things or more, you get your ammo back, you get your shot back. If you kill 2 guys with a headshot, if you kill two guys or more, you get your ammunition back, your shot back, all right? So this thing is both good at dealing with single target enemies as well as groups of enemies. Even though it doesn't have a very large radius, it's still a pretty darn good weapon, and you can still do this fine. Again, if you don't believe me, then please go watch the gameplays on my channel. You will see I do this all the fucking time. This is amazing. And even though the sniper bolter aims to do the same thing, it is just not as good as the last fusil. Just not as good. All right. Now it's important to know the thing this weapon in theory has going for it is that it has more ammo. All right. You have more shots. And that's true. You have more ammo. And you also, the same way you have on the Stalker Bolter here, you have the perk that refunds you ammo equal to 50% of the amount of enemies you hit when you reload. This thing also has the same perk. However, that perk is quite bugged and doesn't work properly, and sometimes doesn't even work at all. So it's really not reliable. The one thing it has going for it is that you can recover your ammo, but it's quite a bugged perk that doesn't really work. So you can't really rely on this. All right. Now some people will say, oh, but this thing has the most amazing perk where you deal extra 25% damage when you are below 30% health, and that basically means you can one-shot anything in the game, including some of the extremists, not all, but some. All right. And yes, that's true. But again, you only works when you are below 30% health. You're already fucking close, danger close on the doors of death, all right? So you can't really rely on this because anything is going to kill you. Playing constantly below 30% health is like you're in the brink of death. Any minor mistake, any little damage you take, it's gonna get you killed, all right? It's just not reliable, and it's certainly not a solo carry build, okay? Because you are going to die. It's only a matter of time before you die. You're below 30% health in an already fucking frail class. All right? For a gimmicky extra damage. By comparison, you can play the last fusil, do just the same amount of damage, even better, and play at full health, no problem. You can carry. The last fusil sniper, properly built and properly playing the last fusil sniper, you can carry any runs, all right? Playing the sniper bolter, you really cannot. You play more of a support class with extreme damage. And it's pretty damn cool to play like that. It is, but it's pretty darn dangerous. And it's not for everybody, all right? And you're most likely going to get killed. You're just not very reliable at all. I can't say this weapon like it's a bad weapon, not by any means, all right? It's basically a different version of the best sniper rifle in the game. It has its own gimmick, it does its own thing. It's okay if you want to use it. It's okay if you say, oh, my style like this better than that one. That's cool. But the last was you is just straight up right superior in every fucking aspect. And it's damn fucking broken. Okay? The only thing that prevents this from being outright the best weapon in the game is the limited amount of ammo. So you have to be wise how you spend sniper ammo. Okay? But I'll be talking more about this if I do a guide about the sniper class, all right? I don't think this is here's the place for this. Okay, guys? So that's it. My tier list for the primary weapons, okay? Now I'll be doing another one for the secondary weapons, for the pistols, and for the melee weapons, all right? All right, guys. Now, as you can see, I have reset the tier list here, and I have uploaded the pistols. All right, so you basically only have 4 sidearms in this game. So instead of going per category as I did with the primary weapons, I'm just going to go top to bottom. All right, I think it's easier. So, oh, I'm sorry, this thing has to be, oh, okay, now I can see this better. Okay, so you basically have the regular bolt pistol, the heavy bolt pistol, the laser pistol, and the plasma pistol. Okay, and starting from the very best in the game, they are the plasma and the heavy bolter pistol, okay? And let me explain. Remember, not all these are available to all classes, okay? The plasma pistol is only available to the bulwark and to the heavy, all right? And the heavy bolter pistol The heavy bolt pistol is only available to the assault class. It's exclusive to the assault class. All right. And the plasma pistol, when it released, it was ridiculously fucking broken. It was absolutely murderous weapon. It was almost on the same level as a primary weapon, not even a secondary weapon. So powerful it was. As the patches came and the balance became a little bit better, this weapon got quite a bit of nerfs, and it's still quite possibly the strongest sidearm in the game. Okay, remember it's a plasma weapon, so you can do charge shots, and the charge shots, they are explosive, so you can kill clumps of enemies with this. A fully charged shot will interrupt a call for aid, and it actually does significant damage. It's not a bad weapon at all. Like it's the most damaging amongst all the pistols. This one is surely the most damaging, and it has quite a considerable amount of burst damage. Okay. Now the heavy bolt pistol is a pretty darn strong pistol. It does a lot of damage. All right. It's no wonder this thing is available to the assault, because the assault basically has no primary weapon, so he has to have like a robust secondary to keep up with the range damage. All right. Now this thing is not as powerful as a primary weapon, of course, but amongst the pistols, this thing does a lot of damage. It really has quite a bit of a high damage output. Okay, and it's consistent damage. All right. And remember, because it's a bolt weapon, you can get headshots with this, and you can kill gaunts with a single fucking shot in the head. All right. This weapon is very, very strong, but again, only exclusively available to the assault. Now, following these two, you have the regular bolt weapon, which is available to every class in the game, and the regular bolt pistol is a pretty darn good pistol. All right. It doesn't do area damage, charge shots like the plasma. It doesn't do as much damage as the heavy bolt pistol. All right. But it's still a pretty darn good sidearm. Okay. It does decent damage. There's many different ways you can build it. You can build it focused more on headshot damage, more around having more accuracy, or around having more ammo and larger magazines. And all of these three builds are okay, are viable, are pretty darn good, or especially in the hands of the sniper. I think out of all the classes in the game, the sniper is the one that makes the better use of the pistol. Okay, it's almost as good as these ones. Not quite, right? Not quite. In the hands of the sniper, I'd say it's just barely almost as good as these. All right, but you can't really compare. These two are strictly superior, but again, they are exclusive weapons for classes that don't have a main weapon. All right, remember that. And the bolt pistol is readily available for everyone. And a single shot with the bolt pistol, regardless of how you build it, how you build it for damage, for ammo, for accuracy, a single headshot in a gaunt will kill him. Okay, it's important to say this. So it's a pretty darn good weapon. And even though this weapon is available to the board and to the heavy, sometimes in some builds and in some situations, especially if I have a sniper in the group, I will prefer to have the bolt pistol over this one. It's still a pretty darn good weapon. Okay, it's still a pretty darn good sidearm. All right. And at last, you have this thing here, who, remember, it's a DLC weapon. It's the new Volkite pistol. It's basically a laser pointer. That's what it is. Now, my real opinion of this would be to create another tier here in the bottle that says absolutely fucking shameful piece of shit, piece of garbage. But I'm not going to do that because I'm very polite and cool. And I'm not even going to put it here in not my favorite weapon, even though it's not my favorite weapon. I'm going to put it as an okay weapon, all right? And I'm going to elaborate on this. Now, the idea behind this weapon, remember, this is a fixed beam that the longer you focus on a target, the more damage you will do, all right? That's the gimmick here of this weapon. Now, straight out right, if you aim this thing to kill a Minoris, you take fucking forever to kill a Minoris with this piece of shit until he blows up, as opposed to any of these where you can fire a single charge shot and kill a clump of Minoris. You can use these two to aim for the head and get a fast headshot kill, All right. By the time you kill a dozen minorities with this, you kill like 2 with this piece of shit. Okay. So it's really not good at killing minorities at all. Now, some people say, oh, but that's not its purpose. It does massive damage to majorities, to terminus, to enemies, to blah, 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 to zone tropes. That's gimmicky, all right? There's no damage this thing does that these weapons don't do better, all right? Theoretically, the longer you hold your beam, the more damage you do. So against enemies that have large health pools, this will be better in the long run as a DPS over time, as damage over time. The problem with this thing is you cannot reliably keep your beam going for too long. Being realistic, you have to move, you have to dodge, you have to parry, you have to relocate. You guys play this game. You're swarmed by enemies all the fucking time. Enemies are hitting you back. Nobody's sitting still waiting for you to charge your laser pistol while aiming to their head. All right? So it's very hard to keep the laser pistol going, the damage, the build up going. All right? That's why all the other weapons in the game are better. All the other sidearms in the game are simply better than this piece of crap. Now, the only reason why I don't put it here as not my favorite weapon and it's an okay weapon is because it has 2 good uses, all right? There's 2 things this weapon does very well. And the first one is killing spore mines, all right? Because this is a fixed, constant beam, you don't really have to aim for the spore mines. You just fire the beam, hold the fire, move the camera around, and you're going to hit the spore mines and kill them all. So this thing is amazing at killing spore mines super fast. And the same thing with Chaos Cultists, because those guys die so very easy, like you don't even have to properly aim. Just fire the beam, move the camera around, and you're going to kill all the cultists in the area very easily. So this weapon has a niche, and it's to kill spore mines and to kill Chaos Cultists. But if you're looking at this to do damage even to bosses, like everything else, every other side pistol in the game is outright better. All right, so this concludes the sidearm portion of this video. Very small in comparison with the main weapons, right? Because you have so many main weapons and you only have 4 sidearms. All right, now we're going to repeat this and I'm going to do this with the melee weapons. Okay, folks, here I am back with the melee weapons. All right, and as you can see, some of these weapons I have placed like multiple of them because it's important to note this. You have different versions of the same melee weapon regarding their styles. You have the fencing weapons, the balance weapons, and the block weapons, all right? And in some cases, I rank these differently, okay? That's why you see multiple pictures of the same weapons, okay? And as I did with the pistols, there are not that many melee weapons to go around. So I'll just place them going from top to bottom, in my opinion, okay? And I'll straight outright say this. In my opinion, the very best melee weapon in the game is the knife. Wait up. I'm going to elaborate on it, okay? So this here is the balanced version of the knife. This here is the block version of the knife, and this here is the, or rather, this one is the fencing, and this one is the block one. It's really small for me. I can't really see. Let me just give a zoom in here. Which one is which? This is the block and this is the fencing, all right? Let me just get this back to the regular size. Okay, like this. Sorry. So this is the block, this is the fencing, all right? And all 3 of them I'll put in the strongest in the game. And I'll elaborate on this, okay? Some people will argue, oh, the best one is the chain sword because you can do the cancel movement and have your combos fire faster. And that's true. That's true. And I know about it. I know about this thing, okay? Even still, I think the knife is the best weapon in the game, okay? And I'll explain to you why. What makes the knife wonderful? The speed. This is the fastest weapon in the game, regardless of which version of the weapon you choose. It's a fast weapon. And you combine that with the moves, okay? The actual moves, the actual combos of the knife are pretty darn good, all right? It's important to say this. The single target, like the fast attack, you can just chain fast attacks, infinite, like light attacks with the knife. as much as you want. It's a never-ending combo, okay? It's super fast, and it actually keeps Majori's enemies staggered, especially the ranged ones. It actually staggers the enemies. So you can get in their face, keep stabbing them, and staggering them, all right? That's amazing. The Skull Crusher, which is your area damage for dealing with clumps of Minoris, are pretty darn good. They're pretty effective. All right, and because you're running a fast weapon, means you recover faster, you cancel faster, you finish faster, so you feel more agile, more mobile. All right, it's amazing. Remember, this thing is only available for the Vanguard and for the Sniper. All right, it's an amazing fucking weapon. Now, between the three differences of these weapons, let me elaborate a little bit further on them. Okay. Important to note that patch 5 introduced a new blocking mechanic and pretty much buffed the damage on all blocking weapons by a whole freaking lot. All right, and that made blocking like super viable. I don't think it's better than parrying. Okay, for those of you who don't know, let me put it like this: the fencing version of the weapon, you parry. All right. The block version of the weapon, you can't parry. Instead, you block the attacks. Okay? And the balance, you can both parry and block, but you don't have the whole block mechanic thing where you build adrenaline charges to do massive melee damage and recover armor. And your parries have a smaller window, a tighter window. All right? So you're not particularly great at parrying or blocking, and it's slightly harder to parry with a balanced weapon. And to offset this, these weapons have different stats in regarding to their cleaving potential, to the damage they do, and to their speed. Okay, so this one here is my favorite one in the game. It's just the balanced knife. All right, it is super fucking fast. It's probably the fastest weapon in the game. I have to check here, but I'm pretty sure it's the fastest weapon in the game. It does quite significant damage, all right? And you can parry with this thing, and if you miss your parry, you can still block. You won't build adrenaline charges, but at least you won't get hit. You can reliably parry with this, all right? Once I know it's a bit harder. Most people prefer the fencing because it's easier to parry with a fencing weapon, and that's okay. The fencing version of the knife does more damage, but it's quite slower. It has a speed of 4 or 4 plus, something like that. It's still a pretty darn good weapon, all right? Even though I prefer the balanced one. And the block version of the knife has a speed of 6 or 6 plus, so only slightly slower than this. But this thing, I think it has 7 damage. This thing has 14 damage. This does massive fucking damage, all right? So all versions of the knife are amazing, regardless if you want to stick with your fencing weapon, if you want to stick, if you're like me who prefer to use the balance, or if you want to experiment with blocking, you prefer blocking. That's cool, man. They're all pretty darn good, okay? For me, the very best weapon in the game. Also, on this same category of very best weapon in the game goes the Thunder Hammer. Yes, the Thunder Hammer. And remember, Thunder Hammer is assault-only weapon exclusive to the assault class. Now, the Thunder Hammer, I didn't put any variations of him in here because all of them are pretty darn good, all right? I did this with the knife. Because I actually think the fencing version is not quite as good as the others. That's why I separated the knife. I'm sorry, guys. And it's exactly because of the speed, because it has a speed of 4, all right? So it's not very fast. And because it loses speed, it's not quite as good as these two, but it's still a pretty darn good weapon. If you're still like getting the hangs of your parry and you can't rely on a balanced weapon and you don't want to go blocking, you can still go with the fencing knife and just do fine. But by comparison, these weapons here are better because of their speed. All right. The slow knife, I really think is inferior to the other ones. Okay, that's why I separate the three of them. I'm sorry. And for the hammer, all 3 versions of the hammer are amazing. Okay, the fencing version of the hammer, you have the better parries. In comparison to the balanced version of the hammer, you do the exact same damage and the exact same speed. The only difference between the fencing hammer and the balanced hammer is that the balanced hammer has more cleaving potential. And cleaving potential, what it means is it does more damage to minorities, okay? When you're dealing with groups of enemies, with area damage of enemies, it does more damage to groups of enemies, to clumps of gaunts, basically, all right? So the balanced hammer plays pretty much like the fencing hammer, only it does more damage to minorities, and it's quite a considerable amount of damage to minorities, all right? You lose a bit on the parry window in order to gain this extra damage against minorities, and they're both very good, okay? You can play with them both. They pretty much feel the same. They're both very good. And the block thunder hammer, as of right now, has ridiculously massive damage, and it's even faster than the fencing and the balance versions of the hammer. All right, so it's faster and stronger, and quite considerably stronger. The aerial assaults you do with the block thunder hammer do massive damage. It does so much fucking damage. All right, and also what makes the hammer so good is the super massive damage it does. And also the movements, okay? You only have like very basic, you don't have a large variety of combos or movements or attacks with the hammer, but the few you do are very good and do a lot of damage, and specifically area damage, okay? That's what makes the hammer amazing. The knife is a super fucking fast weapon. The hammer is a slow weapon by comparison with the knife, regardless of what it says here in speed. In comparison to the knife, the hammer is slow, okay? It's a slow weapon, but it does massive damage. That's why it's a hard to master weapon, because you can't really, it feels clunky, all right, playing with the hammer. You have to be precise. You have to know what attack to use, when to use, otherwise you're gonna get screwed. All right, so it's very hard to master the hammer, but once you do, the hammer is really ridiculously fucking powerful. All right, now we have here, following next in this category, we have the chain sword. All right, and here we have the fencing version of the chain sword. It's a pretty darn good weapon, and the block version of the chain sword is also a pretty darn good weapon. Why are these super fucking good? Because they are fast, all right? The fencing version of the chainsword is the fastest version of them all. I actually think the block version now has the same speed, or at least very close. Maybe it's only slightly slower. I gotta check. The stats is here, but I gotta zoom in. I don't want to screw up the video for you guys, all right? But these two are super fucking fast, and the block version does so much massive fucking damage, all right? And these weapons being fast is what makes them amazing. Now, for some people, this is the very best weapon in the game, and I understand that, and I respect your opinion, and I can say personally, this is my personal opinion, all right? I prefer the knife. Even still, I prefer the knife. I don't think this is as good as the knife. It's close, but it's not as good as the knife, all right? So for me, it belongs here. But for some people, for a lot of people, actually, it is the best weapon in the game, okay? For me, not quite. I still prefer the knife and the hammer, all right? Now, the balanced version of the chainsword is a piece of shit. Seriously, there is no reason to use this weapon. Why? Because it's super fucking slow. It's clumsy, all right? What you gain from this, you go to the balanced version, what do you gain? You have a slower weapon that has a smaller parry window and that doesn't have the block mechanic. You only lose, like going to the balanced version of the chainsword, you only lose. While the fencing and the blocking version are amazing, this thing is a piece of garbage. There's really no reason to choose this over this, all right? Now, on the same category here of pretty darn good weapons, we have the power sword, and I forgot to change the skin, so they all look the same. But basically, you have the fencing version, the block version, I think it's this one, and the balanced version, all right? And the fencing version and the balanced version, there are two different balanced versions. One that's slower and does more damage, and one that's faster but does a little bit less damage, all right? consider them both in here, all right? This is just to categorize fencing and balance. And you have the block version of the power sword, and the block version of the power sword is a piece of shit, and I'll explain why. Let's remember, the power sword is exclusively available to the bulwark. It's the bulwark weapon, okay? And it's an overall a balanced weapon. You have two modes. You have the regular mode, which is the speed mode, which you have very fast attacks, and which is the one you want to use against single targets that play more like a knife, all right? And you have the power mode. The power mode, you basically have a slower attack that has more area damage and that sends a wave forward. So the power version of the sword is what you use to clear clumps of enemies. And on top of that, you have the power rake. So the power rake is basically like a ranged shockwave attack you do while sitting in place, okay? It has a good range. It's not super amazing range, but it has a good range. And the power rake will do the same amount of damage regardless of which stance you are, all right? So you can do power rake both in power mode or in regular mode, non-power mode. It's basically the same, okay? And the power sword is an all-round amazing weapon, okay? You can deal with everything in the game. It doesn't do as much damage as the hammer, all right? Nor is quite as fast as the knife. But it does decent damage. It has amazing speed, okay? You can deal with anything in the game. It's actually a very fun weapon. It's a bit difficult to master because you have to switch styles and you kind of get the hang of this thing. It takes a while. But it's pretty fun, pretty rewarding, and pretty cool, and a pretty powerful weapon. I still don't think it's as good as the knife or as the hammer, all right? But it's a pretty darn powerful weapon, pretty darn good weapon. And the reason why I place the fencing and the balance version is pretty good and this thing is garbage is because as the bulwark, you want to be parrying, all right? The bulwark doesn't do a whole lot of damage. The bulwark plays more of a static style, all right? The damage you do on the bulwark comes from your parries, comes from getting properly timed parries against the right enemies at the right time. You want to be parrying. You want I know that the shock will also trigger when you block. The shock perk will also trigger when you block. But your intimidating aura, which does area damage when you parry, will not trigger on a block, only on a parry. All right. So if you're not parrying, you're not doing damage. Also, there is a perk that gives you basically instantly get an enemy into execution when you parry him. That procs every 2 minutes. All right, even extremis, and that I gotta check, but I don't think that will proc on a block, only on a parry. All right, but even if it does proc on a block, intimidating aura only procs on a parry. The bulwark is all about parrying. You're amazing as the bulwark parrying, and if you pick a block weapon, you lose your ability to parry. Plus, the bulwark is the only class in the game that has the shield. You kind of have a block. Like in your class anyway, without using a block weapon, all right? So with the bulwark, you should be picking the sword that gives you the ability to parry. You'll always better off with the ability to parry. Now, in my opinion, the fencing one is the better one because it's the fastest, all right? And I like fast weapons. You guys already know this because I rated the knife, they're very fucking bad. And this is the fastest version of the sword. Now, the balanced version, you lose speed, but you gain a lot more single target damage, or there is a secondary balanced version of the sword where you lose a little bit of speed and you gain cleaving potential, meaning you do more damage against minorities, and it's quite significant. But you lose speed. You are slightly slower. They're both very good, all right? Regardless of which version you pick, they are very good weapons, all right? Remember, with the balanced weapons, you have a slightly shorter parry window. So if you are playing a class that relies purely on parrying, for me at least, it's logical that you have the weapon that gives you the best parry available possible, okay? But you can't go wrong by going balanced and having extra damage against minorities. You really can't, all right? And finally, you have the power fist, okay? Sorry about the dog in the background, guys. You have the power fist, okay? And the power fist is an okay weapon, regardless of which version you use. All right, let's remember, and I'll talk a bit about the power fist, why it goes here, okay? Power fist is only available to the bulwark who already has the exclusive power sword, and to the assault who already has the exclusive thunderhammer, all right? And both the power sword and the thunderhammer are better than the fist in every single fucking way, period. That's it, all right? If you look at these weapons, the reason why I say they're awesome is because they have something going for them. They have, the knife is amazing because of the speed plus its movements, its combos. The hammer is amazing because of its massive damage and its simple attacks, its area attacks. All right. The knife is a pretty balanced all-round weapon, just as the chain sword that's fast. All right. Their combos are pretty darn good of these weapons. Okay. Now the power fist really has nothing going for it. It's an okay weapon. Sure, you can pick the power fist and do just fine. But amongst the melee weapons, it's the worst of them. It's not particularly fast. It's not particularly strong. It doesn't have particularly amazing area damage. It's not particularly good at dealing with any specific kind of enemy. It's not particularly good against minorities, particularly good against majorities, particularly good against terminals. It's not particularly good at anything. It's just okay. All right. Some people, now there's some people, I see some people saying, oh, but the fourth and fifth combo of the power fist sequence are amazing and are what make this weapon super awesome. Really? The fourth and fifth final movement of the combo? When do you, realistically speaking, ever use the fourth and fifth version of a combo, man? Especially playing on lethal fucking difficulty. All right? On a slow weapon on top of that, okay? And the answer to that is never. I won't say never, but I'll say very rarely ever will you do that. And when you do, the one time you actually pull off the fourth and fifth final version of the combo is when it wouldn't have mattered anyway. You didn't need it. It was an easy fight, an easy enemy. Realistically speaking, you're hitting the enemy 2 times, 3 times tops before you got to parry, dodge, or move, or do something else. You never pull off a long combo, especially on a slow fucking weapon that you have to charge. That's why the hammer is awesome. All right? You don't do long combos. You do 1 or 2 fucking attacks that do massive fucking damage. This thing is it's just not good. It's just not good. All right? It's just not good. In comparison to everything else you have available to you, there is no reason to go for the fist. Also worth noting that specifically for the assault, like the damage you do with your aerial assault, with your aerial attack, is based on the damage of your melee weapon. So you want to have the strongest possible melee weapon to have the strongest possible aerial assault, and the hammer is the strongest melee weapon available. It does more damage than the fucking fist. All right. Now that being said, you can still choose the fist, play with the fist, and do fine. You can play solo lethal fist only just fine. Yes, you can. But bear in mind, all these options over here that are ranked higher in the list are straight outright better than the fucking fist. Okay? Now, it's okay if you choose the fist and say, oh no, I understand that it's not a great, amazing weapon, that I have better choices, but I want to play with the fist because I like it, because for lore reasons, for whatever. Oh no, I really like the fist. It's an amazing weapon. Okay, it's super cool playing with the fist. Okay, that's okay. You can say that. But you can never say that, oh no, I choose the fist because it's the very best weapon in the game. No, it's really not. Okay, it's really not. It's okay to use the fist if you want, but don't lie to your own self. All right, don't make excuses. Just say, oh, I use it because I like it, because I think it's cool. All right. Also, for me personally, particularly, it feels so fucking stupid watching like those guys with this ridiculously swollen hand. It looks like they have an injured hand or something. Especially the bulwark. You have a shield in your hand and a fist in the other. I don't know, man. It's just, I really can't like the fist. All right. I really can't like the fist, and I can't rank it any higher than this. All right. Okay, guys, this concludes the list. I tried to keep this simple. I tried to keep this short, but there's a lot to talk about. Okay. Remember, leave your comments. You're free to like, dislike, agree, disagree. It's cool. You're actually invited to do so. You're welcome to do so. All right. Everything you see here, everything you see me talk about in regards to the weapons, you can see in my playthroughs in the channel. Watch the videos that I have of my plays, of my operations, of my solo plays, of my of the lives. Okay, you will see that I use these weapons. You will see me in action with these weapons. All right. So you will understand why I'm ranking this. I'm not making this stuff up, okay? I'm really not making this stuff up. This is my knowledge I'm sharing with you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you guys learn. The idea of me doing this is for you, is to help you be a better player. And you being a better player is best for everyone, all right? I want to team up with you. When I pick up a random, it's a guy who watched my guides, who watched my videos, and who learned from them, and who got pretty darn good in the game from them. It's better for everyone. It's better for you. It's better for me. It's better for your teammates. That's the idea behind this, okay? Is to help you guys learn and improve your game, to share my knowledge with you guys, all right? I hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great, wonderful day wherever you are in the world. God bless you. Thank you, brothers. See you.